Welcome to Wow, Look at Us Now podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Onslager.
And I'm Michael Onslager.
And these are our co-hosts. What's your guys' names?
Audrey
and Curtis
Frables. So this episode is basically about marriage and sex. So we're gonna get getting jiggy with it. You know? Okay, never mind. Okay. You can ask the first question.
So actually, before we start asking questions, you guys want to give yourself like a 30-minute intro of like who you guys are, what you guys...
It can be longer than that. They have a lot of history.
Yeah.
So let's say a short background story of you guys.
Okay.
Of
us, or
Yeah.
individually, or
I would say of you
how we
guys.
came to Garden Valley, or
I would definitely say go back to your high school days.
high
marriage.
school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time, dude. I
That,
just turned 42.
that beginning of the story of
It's like
like how
20
you guys
years ago.
dated and then, you know, all that.
Yeah.
20 years ago?
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
Bro, I'm 23.
I'm
Whoa.
41.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
turned 41.
99.
23 years.
I was born
99
92,
was when
so.
we got together. You tell this better because you were chasing me, is how you always say it.
Did you see that sad?
Yeah.
She's like, you were chasing me. Yeah. Chased her for 4 years.
Something like
Years.
that. I don't know if it was that long.
In high school, right?
In
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
Yep.
High
She
school
was
sweethearts.
I was always chasing her.
Audrey
No
was a
matter
popular
what.
girl, huh?
She
was
was.
like, "Oh,
Yes, she was. Yep.
It was Oakland.
She
It was a
was-
small
It was Oakland.
And then when I finally gave up and said, forget it, it ain't happening, is when she finally decided that, oh, he's kind of cute. I like him.
He tried all the tactics. He was like my brother's best friend.
That
and
wasn't
like,
on purpose.
My mom's son, and
He was
then
my baseball coach.
You got like close to every one of your family members.
That one was unintentional. He was my baseball coach. We actually got along
true.
well.
That's true.
But it did benefit.
But I literally was like, he's like my brother. So my
He's
brother,
like, bro, your sister's hot.
my brother was like, why don't you date Curtis? And I was like, he's like my brother. That's weird. Like we were really good
Yeah.
friends.
Which is funny because the moment I told him we were dating, our friendship like ended.
He's like,
It's so
It was
true.
weird.
looking
Yeah.
at you. I totally forgot we're on a podcast too, so we're like making all these eye things, but they don't see us. Okay.
Right. You don't see the hand motions. So, yeah. I don't remember what shifted. It was, well, I do remember what shifted. It was going into your senior year. My best friend, Kelly, and I, and the three of us, Kelly and I and Curtis, we were all like really good friends, hung out all the time, literally like siblings. We were just really close. And you guys had, what did they call it? Like daily doubles during football. So August, Kelly and I came to the football practice. You know, we're like peering in from the outside, watching the guys, and they don't even have shirts on. And I'm like, who is that? Kelly's like, that's Curtis. I'm like, no way, that's not Curtis.
That's the same thing I said when I seen him with his shirt off for the first time.
Oh gosh.
I was like,
here we
who is
go.
that? He was out there throwing cornholes at that thing you invited us, that barbecue. I was like, oh yeah, okay.
That was literally the first time you saw me.
No, he didn't actually have a shirt on. He was in a tank top.
Yeah.
It was Under Armour black with white trim. Anyways,
That's so funny. Yeah. I mean, and he was little, but he was so tan. I was like, who is that with the tan? Like, whoo. Playing quarterback. And so something in my eyes shifted that day. And yeah, I don't know. One thing after that. Then I think you also like got a girlfriend. And I was like, what? You have a girlfriend? I don't know about this. So sometime after that. So yeah, I
It
mean,
was almost towards the end of the year, though.
yeah.
It was about baseball season.
Yeah. But we were the break up, get back together, break up, get back together couple for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I was in the Navy for 4 years.
Yeah, then I was gonna
so
say
that
you went to
didn't
the
help.
Navy.
Heck no.
So check this out. So Curtis actually told me, and I thought this was super cool. You used to send flowers to Audrey while overseas,
Yeah, in the middle of the
and so she's sitting in a high school classroom and just gets these roses. Which at the time, like as a high school student, you're like, oh, roses are really expensive. Like if I
this is my older
yeah,
boyfriend.
and he's got money.
Yeah.
got that flower.
Oh man,
That was amazing. Beautiful, beautiful roses. Yeah, that was like
Middle of the Pacific.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what
Blue
happened? You
flowers.
guys still continued to date after high school, and then so for how long is that period?
quite a while. I mean, it was so hard. You know, in those days, we didn't have all the technology. So trying to stay connected while you're in the service, it was so hard. We would get, you try to email.
Yeah, it was emails.
And
no
then-
Facebook, no Instagram.
Yeah, you'd wait for like an email to come in or a phone call, which you just didn't know when was coming in. It was a landline. So if you weren't home to catch the call, you missed the call, which happened
Yeah.
once in a while.
When you're on a boat too, it's way different than
Yeah.
having the outpost telephone like when you're in the army or like on a base.
Yeah.
It's like
Versus-
it was like a 3-minute delay or something.
Yeah.
Yep. And like, I can't hear you.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
So you guys got. No, I can't remember. Did you have? Were you guys married when you had Haven?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
remember. I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if you guys had her before, but no, you guys waited till then.
Yeah. Kind of a quick little recap, I guess I'll say, is I mean, we broke up, got back together, and then at some point, while we were actually broken up, I moved to San Diego while he was still in the Navy. And I swore I didn't move down there for him, but of course, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, maybe moving a little bit closer to him. I was like, I just like San Diego. It's so beautiful. But I had
I was gonna say, do you have family?
I have family close by, about a couple hours or so, but I had visited him in San Diego. And so I did have like a desire and a plan to move down there. And then we broke up, and then I was like, oh, I'm still moving down there. So all that to say, of course, we got back together when I moved down there, and I was pursuing him. And then you moved back when you got out of the service. And then again, fast forward, I think at some point, he said, I want you to move back. And I was like, I'm not moving back unless like it's serious and you're going to put a ring on my finger. Like, I'm not. And so pretty much
Took 3 tries.
pretty much that was it. Once he asked me to marry him and put a ring on my finger, and then I packed up and moved back to Oregon, even though I didn't really want to. I loved it down there.
Yeah. I would have too. I don't know why I live here sometimes. It's not like a diss against Oregon because it's beautiful, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, I need the sun. I am
Yeah.
a different person when the sun comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of sun down there for sure.
Yeah. So we will start with the first question, and you guys can answer separately, whatever works. What was the lowest point in your marriage, and how did you get out of it?
You want to
You
go
guys
first?
might have different times. So
We
I'm
do have
guessing
different
I would
times.
say different times.
I think we do. Well, I'll go first because chronologically mine was, I think, first, and it does kind of segue, I think, into yours. So, lowest point for sure in my mind was it was just before we had both given our lives to the Lord. And I mean, God was just really just pursuing me, calling me back home, and we were falling apart. And I was pregnant with Tristan, so our second child. And then Haven was not even 3 years old yet. And I decided I was done. And I would say this time I really was done. Like, there was no other time that I can think of in my mind where I was done like I was done this time. I had settled things. I was done. Not to mention that we had conversations about going to church and serving God, and Curtis wasn't open at that time. So I was just done. And so left, moved in with my parents. Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the absolute lowest point, because I remember literally leaving, not looking back, like, this is it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
I've
I
been
even
in that spot. Yeah.
yeah, and I even was thinking about it today, and I was like, oh my gosh, I keep crying thinking about it because it's just amazing. Looking back, where I literally was, totally turned my heart off, walked away, and what God has done out of that and through that and from that point is just amazing.
So what helped you get out of it in like the time? Like, or what brought you back to him, I guess? Like, what was your lowest point, and then what helped you get out of it? So,
Well, I mean, he came back. He talked me in to coming back, you know, said all the sweet things. It's going to be different. I'm going to change. And I did see a repentive heart. I did see humility, even not knowing then that these are the things that I really should have been looking for because I wasn't serving God, but I could feel God calling me home. I was seeing that. And, you know, when you're at that place, seeing your family possibly being ripped apart and you're making decisions for 3 other lives, counting Lucas at the time. It's just, you know, that you just have the weight on your shoulders. And so, I think I obviously had to factor that in. Like, these are my kids' dad. He's humbling himself. He's saying these things. So I had to let him back in and give him that chance. So yeah, I mean, that was the turning point. It didn't happen overnight, but that's when I started, a few months later, surrendered my life to the Lord, started going to church. And about a year later is when he gave his life to the Lord. So it was kind of that beginning of the turn, really.
yeah. So what about you, Curtis? He's like, should I bring this up? Should I not?
No, I just.
What about the way out and the way home? I'm just kidding. Hey, just remember, you got out of it and you came back. You guys got out of it.
For me, it was a different time. We were living in, well, that time we were actually living in Salem when you left. So, yeah, that's kind of important too. She left me in a whole nother town by myself. This was, I don't know how many years ago.
Several. I think it was like 2013, somewhere
Yeah,
in
so
there.
like 9 years. So it was a few years after that. We'd been serving the Lord, but still fighting, and I mean, young couple. And my memory's not as good as hers, so I don't have as much detail. I just remember us being to the point where I was sitting in my counselor's office with pastor and 2 pastors, actually. And they basically, one of them was telling me that I needed to pack my stuff and move out. And I looked at him and I said, no, it's not happening. And he's like, you know, what do you mean? You guys are pretty much done. You need to move out. Again, we were pretty much done. I said, no, I'm not walking out. I will not walk out on my family. And so he made a comment, something like, you know, if she leaves, it's okay. And I said, you know, yeah, that's, if she wants to leave, she can leave, but I am not walking out the door. And I didn't. And yeah, so I got out of it was just, or not got out of it, but came back. It's just a lot of hard work, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of desire and fight in me to not want to lose my family, lose my kids. One of the biggest things for me in those moments was my mom was divorced 2 or 3 times. I didn't have a dad, and I didn't want my kids to have to go through that. So to me, no matter how difficult this was, I still didn't want my kids to know what it was like to not have their dad around. And that was at sometimes, mostly, the biggest part that drove me to really work and reconcile the marriage was, no, I'm not abandoning my kids.
Yeah.
So
I've heard
that's
that
good.
like 2 or 3 times, and it still gets me.
Every time.
Yeah. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
how do you guys stay intimate? Like, honestly, like, not just, I mean, please share, I mean, you obviously don't share details, but, like, nothing like that. But, like, how do you stay intimate? Like, how do you keep that physical fire? How do you keep that emotional fire? Because it's easy. It's easy, even only being
Busy
very,
lives.
like, busy
Yeah.
lifestyle. And it's not even, maybe it's not even about the other person. Like, maybe the other person is doing everything right. Maybe you're doing everything right. But you just get into this lifestyle of, like, it's just demanding. And so how do you guys stay intentional about being intimate?
Yeah. And you are talking about physical intimacy, right?
Mostly physical,
Okay.
and then emotional, because like I'm like I cannot be physically intimate unless I am emotionally intimate. Like, if it is hard for me, like, I'm just an emotional physical person. Like,
Wow.
And I'm like the opposite.
yeah,
Like,
she can be
usually
mad.
stop.
Yeah, she can be mad and be like, "You want to do it?" And I'm like, not really. Like, I have to know that.
do it.
Yeah, because I'm like, I have to know that she is okay with me. Otherwise, I can't bring it to the party.
He overthinks things
Yeah.
quite a bit. But then I don't know. It's probably because of my upbringing. Because you also waited till. Well, I mean, technically, you kind of waited till you were engaged. Well, married, whatever, that other time.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it since I was 15, so that's probably what it was. Why? And it's physical touch. But anyways,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And personality.
Physically, mostly.
All those things.
That's funny because we're the opposite.
Yeah, I was thinking the same
She's
thing.
emotional,
I'm more
whatever.
like
Oh, yeah.
you, Mike.
I'm a sissy when it comes to my wife. Somebody can say something mean to me, and I'm like, whatever. My wife's like, oh, you're rude, or oh, you're dumb. I'm like, you're so mean. Like, I get upset real
Yes.
quick, man.
Yeah.
I'm working on it because
Yeah.
it definitely is a flaw. But how do you?
Yeah. That is so good. A thought that just came to my mind, I have to share because I think it's what has helped me break off some of what you're talking about. When we were being pastored pretty closely by some good friends of ours and continuing to just go through it and struggle. And I can think of so many times I would call her, and of course I'd be going, he did this and he said that and blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, okay, don't even say his name. Now let's talk. And like, I couldn't even say anything. But every time before we hung up on the phone, she would say, now go make love to your husband. And we would be like going through it. And she's like, now go make love to your husband.
And Curtis is like, yeah.
So it became, this obedience thing, no matter how I was feeling, like I was fighting for, and there were times where I was fighting for our marriage in the bed. That was how I was fighting for our marriage, giving my body to him, even though we were not doing well emotionally or connecting, verbally and just going through it. But I continued to, in those times, give my body to my husband, which was a gift, and gave him life. And that's how literally at times I think it kind of revived and kept our marriage alive at times. But that's just something that comes to my mind.
Yeah, I think early on, one of the main ways when we were trying to work all of our stuff out was scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
We scheduled talk time and then sexy time.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big, so it became more of like we were creating habits. No matter what was going on, we knew that on this day we were going to talk, and we knew on this day.
Yeah.
kids go watch something.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah.
Put on a movie.
I'm like, oh, Brax, you know what time it is? He's like, what? I'm like, bedtime. Okay? It's 8:30. He's like, it just turned. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Bedtime. Now.
Yeah.
Flick the fan on, AC. Like,
Noise.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 32 outside. And I'm like, AC because we don't have a noisy heater. So
Well, it's because our rooms are kind of close by each other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think a lot of our story is about the fight, continuing to fight no matter what. And it was so weird when I don't know if someone gave us that advice as far as calendaring sex. Because at first it was like, this is so weird and not romantic. And I didn't want to do it, but we did. And it did. It just created a habit and literally broke off the lack of intimacy. I mean, we were, thinking back, I think we were like in a barren place intimately and a wilderness. I mean, I remember we couldn't even remember the last time we had sex, like months. That's a long time.
Well, and
I'm still not that
It
person.
makes sense too. Like, I didn't even think about it that way till just now, because I am like that emotional person, and there has been times where it's like I didn't have to force myself. Like, I was attracted to my wife, but it was just like mentally, I was just like emotionally like not invested into it. But like when I stepped out and I just did it anyways, like in the moment, I was like, okay, like now I'm getting there. And it's the same thing with like working out. Like you don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. because you're tired, it's cold, and you don't want to walk outside all the time. Yeah, well, yeah, you've gotten to that point. You've gotten to that point, but
He's like, yeah,
I used to, and I used to be that way, but now I'm not, you know, and it's one of those things like, but as you push yourself and you do it more, then you crave it, and then you want to do it, and then you want to, you know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like with what you guys were saying, like the fight is your guys' ministry, and it 100% is. Yeah. I think, and for
first
those
in the home,
those people that are listening that hopefully by now have heard like a lot of episodes, like I talk about my accountability partner a lot, and that's you, Curtis. So, and I drive by your guys' house like probably like 6 times a week, and I always just like I always look outside. I'm like, oh,
that's actually kind of creepy.
Yeah, but I always just look because I do think like. Constantly, like anytime there's something like in that's like going on in our marriage or whatever, I'm like, hey Curtis, like this is what I'm dealing with. Or if it's just me, like, hey Curtis, this is what I'm dealing with. And I didn't have the ability to have a true accountability partner till we actually got to know each other. Like our wives were best friends, or you know. And then Rochelle was like, well, you should get to know Curtis. I'm like, okay, and this is weird, but now I've like developed this weird man crush. But it's just a matter of like the fight. Like you guys it's true. Like. I just think like, okay, what would Curtis and Audrey do? And like, if I ask Curtis something, like he'll set me straight. And it's not even like, because like Rochelle has like said before, it's like, do you go just to talk crap? I'm like, no, like Curtis like puts me straight. Like, bro,
dumb.
He's
like I know how it goes.
Yeah, he's like,
oh, Rochelle's so dumb right now. I know.
But it's true. Like he'll be like, you need to grow up, and I'm like. All right. Okay. Like, okay.
You need to grow up.
Yeah. So it's just like something I'm like, I'm going to cut coffee short. I got to go. Like,
well, that's what I was going to say.
But it is like it causes like there's a lot of things that Curtis has spoken in my life that has caused me to fight. Like, and it's not just physically intimacy, it's emotional intimacy. Like times I don't want to share things with Rochelle.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't pertain to like us in a marriage, it's just me.
Yeah. Like
things in my life that are in my past that it's just me. I don't have to share, but it's caused me to want to share stuff like that because it's like it's hard. But then I find myself wanting to do it more, and then I find our friendship developing even more. Mm-hmm. And so it's just crazy.
Yeah, and keeping it at friends. I think that's what's helped us because obviously I've done this a few times. I know that people. I don't know what people really know, but I've been married. This is now my 3rd time.
This is my 3rd engagement. So
yeah, but this is your first marriage, so this ain't my first rodeo. So I think in all of every relationship, well, I mean, obviously this one has God in the center of it, so that's made all the difference, 100%.
Yes.
But really creating that friendship, like starting out as friends and getting to know each other that way, because then we've continued to be friends. And like, I mean, there's times where you're your husband and wife, but creating that friendship to be able to still have fun together and do all that stuff, that's really helped us, I think.
For sure.
Well, and I thought you had to, in a marriage, I thought you had to be like exactly alike. That way you guys got along, and that way things like,
finish each other.
You know,
sandwiches.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Okay.
So it's like, I always thought you had to be like the same person or whatever, but with like things that Curtis has shared is like, no, it's okay to let that other person like, figuring out, like, let that other person be that other person to the best they can be, and you be the best you, and you'll find a way. You will fight, and you will find a way to come together. And that's, like, things that I'm working on in my area. Like, I always, like, especially in my engagements, like, I always rushed to do everything for that other person, or I always rushed, like, I had to be someone else for that other person. And I even did that, like, at the beginning, like, okay, I got to be there 24/7. I got to make sure that this is right and this is right. And I stopped focusing on myself more. And I realized the more I did that, the more I resented it, the more I was like, like frustrated.
Or you're not getting the same.
Yeah, I wasn't being filled up. And so, and she didn't know how to fill it up because she didn't know I wasn't communicating. I wasn't sharing. I wasn't, whatever the case may be. And so now there's like times where I'm like, I'll just be like, I have to work out, or I have to do this, or I want to go do this. And she's never like, oh, no, you can't do that. But it's just like, I never shared that. And so that's like one of the things, like when I decided to be my own person, like this is when I want to go, this is what I want to go after. This is what I want to pursue. This is, and even if she doesn't necessarily agree with it, she's like, okay, like we get to that part where she's like, you do what you want, like, and we'll figure it out. And so,
yeah,
I think that's a huge a huge thing that you guys like also bring to the table.
Yeah.
Is, like, you guys are much your own person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys do what
But then you come together as a
as a
powerhouse
family and still
couple
figure
too.
out how to juggle family, how to, especially with you working out of town all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That has been a long road. I can relate to some of the things you said because I was like that in the beginning, probably way more than you were. I don't even know if you were like that, but I thought that unity was being the same. Like we have to agree on everything. And I was always trying to like, I think put Curtis in this box.
Well, I think that's what society teaches everybody nowadays. Like if this person doesn't agree with you, it's okay for you to leave, to not be friends with, to dissolve your marriage or whatever. I mean, we were talking about it kind of on the way over here. It's the fight that is lacking.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think one of the biggest things for us in our marriage was what you're talking about is we learned how to be two whole people coming together instead of two halves. Two halves don't make a whole.
And accepting one another's differences. You have to accept each other's differences. Like we are actually so different. So different.
Complete opposites.
Yeah, that's kind of how we are. There's so many parts that we are similar.
Yeah.
Like as in we get along really well because we have certain personality traits, but then there's also things that are like complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's what actually that's probably why I failed my marriages in some parts before this, because I was trying to, because I thought I had to have this like really crazy outgoing guy, and because that's how I am, like, so I'm a social person, so that person's gonna have to be like that. But then so when he started, that's why he wasn't even on my radar. Like, well, that is just one of the reasons, but there's many. But when he would be super quiet, and I would have to make him go talk to people. I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. But then I realized that I really needed that.
Yeah.
And that like there's parts of him that brought out the best in me, and that I needed to like ground, I guess. I wouldn't say like he's not trying to overpower me or how do you want to say that? You're not.
Well,
trying
it's not coming from a place of intention of like I have to make you this way or I have to level you out. It's just me being who I am helps bring you into this area, and you being who you are help. Like I used to hate speaking. Now I've spoken twice up at the on the stage. Don't care. Like I will go and talk to people. Don't care. But it's because of her being truly who she was and not trying to force me or dominate me. And like at times we do argue about that.
100% I do.
Well,
I'm like, okay, you're thanks, babe, but there's parts where I knew, but it's because I seen it wasn't a place like it was intentional of being like, no, he has so much more than that. Like when he opens his mouth, there's so much wisdom that comes out. I'm like, why are you being so shy or whatever? So when we'd sit at church, he would sit in the front and just go the whole time, and I would be like, go talk to that person. Like, no idea who they are. And he's like, no. I'm like, yes. I'm like, get out of your comfort zone. Like, get out of your comfort zone. And then he'd be like, no. And then like after 3 minutes of sitting there, he would get up and go talk to him. And it grew him so much that I'm like, okay, now this is the Michael that I saw, like all the potential that was there. He had no confidence and no self-esteem. So when I helped bring it out of him, and I am going to take credit, I am pretty happy about that. And obviously you did the work, but I'm excited to put a positive thing, because I've always been told I was a negative thing in every relationship.
Well, I mean, we all have our negatives to speak, but that doesn't mean you're a negative person or that you're a negative choice or whatever.
Yeah.
I know.
What would you say with you when it comes to your guys' intimacy? Do you feel more intimate when you feel like you get to be your own person? Like being truly who you are, or doing what, not just because it's like, oh, the wife let me go do this weekend.
Brownie points, you mean?
Yeah, like not just working off brownie points. Like when you feel at your highest, like I know, like, and that this is just recently, like this is not something that's happened. Like I've been recently like journaling things about me as a husband. Like I've noticed that when I feel like I'm more myself, like when I'm not just reading in front of her, or when I'm reading and spending time with God, like in secret, when I'm working out and I'm doing it for me, like I feel like I want to be more intimate with her because of it's just me who I am. Do you guys feel?
I know I struggled with that a lot, because early on that I would only do things for her with the expectation that I was going to have sex in return.
Yeah.
So that drove a lot of the things that I did. And it wasn't until, a few years ago where I finally realized that because I was doing everything with the wrong intention,
Yeah.
if I didn't get sex in return, then I was mad or grumpy.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, I did this and I did that and I did that and I can't even get any.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? Like, that's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
I'm so glad those days are over.
And she's like, you know, she
Like,
just wouldn't
you're
respond.
just being a regular husband.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to do the dishes. Just kidding.
So then once I learned that, okay, doing these things, I need to do these things because I want to, and without the expectation of a return. And then that took that expectation, that pressure off of her. So it actually caused me to be less, you know, not angry, but upset or moping around because I'm not getting what I wanted. Because I look at all this stuff I did because I was doing it with the wrong intention, which helped me learn, okay, I don't actually like doing that, so I'm not going to do that anymore. Because I was forcing myself to do it, and I hate doing it, and now I'm grumpy that I did it, and I didn't get anything in return. So it was like this. It's just, well, that's just. I mean, I'm being honest. It's just that.
No, but
whirlwind.
she's like she's saying that's
It's just
her.
this
Like, that is
whirlwind of
exactly-
I was like, I'm doing all this stuff
Yeah.
for this,
Cycle.
and now I'm not getting this. So now I'm mad because I wasted
Yeah.
time doing that, and I didn't get anything in return.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
It used to be a cycle.
Oh, it was bad. And
Yeah.
then I finally am like, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore with the
Yeah.
expectation that she's going to have sex with me because of that. Because that's
Man,
not why she's going to
There's
do
times
it.
like even where I'm tired or whatever. Like I do the dishes, I make the bed, or clean the house, and she's like, oh,
Because
and I'm
that's
like,
all
no. Like,
But that's,
I'm
but see, that's her
tired.
love
Because he's
language,
tired,
though.
and I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, my
Is
love
that your
tank
love
is
language?
full.
Yeah.
Acts of service, is that your love?
Well, it's within the three. So
Oh, okay.
physical touch,
touch.
quality time, and acts of service are actually tied. So those are my top three.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
it's
for
like that.
me, I would do acts of service because
Yeah.
that's one of
And she
mine.
didn't.
And she hates that. She's like,
I'm
I don't care if
stop
you do
it.
that.
I don't care if you do that. It does nothing for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice that you do the dishes, but it does nothing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Touch me. Put your hands on me.
Yeah. Is yours quality time too, or words of
Quality
affirmation?
time and physical touch are really close,
Yeah.
and they haven't always been
That's-
the same.
So then
That's what mine are,
acts
but
of
they
service
change.
takes away from quality time. So when they're always doing stuff because they think that you want that, but you're taking
It's the
time away from
opposite.
that, and
Yeah.
you're like, I didn't even get to see them or spend time today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you?
I'm not sure if I totally understood the question. I think you're talking about
when you feel like right now in this moment, I feel like I'm truly Audrey. Like my identity right now is full right now. And does that make you want to be more intimate with your husband because you get to be who you are?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, because how I hear that is when I'm in a place of feeling, fully loved,
Yeah.
and which is part of him letting me be me and,
Yeah.
go places or do things or whatever that looks like, or just accepting me for who I am. So, yeah, I mean, when I'm fully loved, yeah, absolutely. I want to love him more. I want to
Yeah.
pour, you're pouring from
Yeah.
a full cup.
Because a lot of people think like, to be intimate, like you were saying, like I gotta pour into this person like constantly, but it's like then you realize like you're drained, and you're not you, and then you don't want to do it. So
Yeah.
we gotta speed through at least, well, not super speedy, but we gotta get to this next question.
Well, and I was just gonna add to that when you have your identity in God, and when you know you're fully loved by God as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
That's when I know I'm more confident and not so self-conscious about myself because I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
God loves me anyway. Who
Yeah.
cares what I look like?
Yeah.
But it like eases my mind and not
Yes.
like feeling like I have to always do this. Like,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah, I think that was a huge game changer for us when we discovered that, we could get our needs met first from him
yeah,
and then pour out and into one another versus prior to that, from broken places, we were just trying to take from one another, meet my need, constantly. And that is just a recipe for disaster,
Yeah.
I would say for sure.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So last and final question. For the people that are really struggling with marriage, what is one piece of advice that you can give them aside from communication or in line with communication? So this one isn't just about intimacy. You guys have been such a huge help in our marriage with the things that we've brought to you guys. And so it's not just about intimacy. If you want to share something about intimacy, I mean, you go ahead. But what's at least one thing that you would give advice other than just communication?
Because communication obviously
is the number one.
Like the number
Yeah.
one.
It's the biggest thing. Like that's one thing
huge.
that
It's
like
every- I
Curtis
mean,
has shared with me,
yeah.
especially.
It really is everything.
Everything
Yeah.
that like Rochelle's like, oh, like you're actually like sharing something. I'm like, well, you can thank Curtis because I didn't want to share. I didn't want to be vocal. I didn't want to be open. So
Communication is huge, and you never arrive. There's always more to discover and learn, and I mean, there's so many different things on it. But other than that, the word I just keep thinking of is just fight. Like you have to fight because your family's worth it. I mean, especially those with children. And the enemy, there is an enemy, and he seeks to devour and divide and destroy. And, you know, God hates divorce because of what it does to the family. It's like murder. It's like a death, literally. People that go through divorces, I mean, you know, you feel like it's like a death. You know, and so there's a reason why the word says what it does say about divorce. So I would just say fight. And what I guess more on that is get people in your life, like reach out. Don't just hide and let it all fall apart.
Yeah.
You know, get people, get a sister, get a brother, get a counselor, a pastor. Don't let it just tumble down.
And where do you think the best place, this is kind of a trick question, where do you think the best place to find someone like that is?
Well, I would say church. I mean, assuming not everybody who's listening to this is going to a church,
Yeah.
I would say get to church. Like we never went to
Community
church.
is huge.
Community is
Yeah.
everything. And I suppose you could have, you know, a in this day and age, a biblical community that maybe is outside the four walls in a home or in a gym. I mean, there's so many different, you know, kind of quote unquote churches that aren't actually in a church building. But you need a faith community for sure. Absolutely. I don't know how people do it without God, to be honest.
Well, and to add to that, this isn't my thing, but to add to that, I would say that be careful who you put in your corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we were really going through it early on, you know, I had the wrong people in my corner where it was, well, just divorce her, just leave.
Yeah.
yeah,
You don't need to deal with that. So if you have the wrong people in your corner, it can actually be worse for you. So
Yeah.
if you're getting people in your corner and you're getting your community, it needs to be other married people, people who fought for their marriage, people
Yeah.
who are going to encourage you, not
And a
discourage
good,
you.
good example ones.
Yeah.
That's sometimes obviously not everyone's perfect, but it's kind of hard to find.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's easy to find the negative ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
To
yeah.
find the good ones.
yeah.
So true. So true.
Because everybody's just gives up.
Yeah. Were you going to say something else?
I think for me, because I've gone through a lot of growth, I didn't grow up in a loving home like she did, so I have had to learn all of that aspect within the marriage. So I can look back to the beginning and where we are now, and my piece of advice would be, or whatever would be, to stick it out. Because where you're going, if you are struggling, or if there is problems in your marriage, when you get to that point, like she made the comment the other day, she's like, are we done fighting now? Like, we're just gonna talk about things? And
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
because we
Finally
would
go
literally
slam
we
doors
would
and
literally
stuff,
fight about
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we could not
Yeah.
talk to each other,
Yeah.
but the fight is worth it. The struggle is worth it. Marriage is worth it. And there does come to a point where it's just you like breathe, and then you have this person with you that's been with you from the beginning. You know,
Yeah.
you chose this person for a reason.
Yeah.
Don't give up just because it struggles. Anything worth having is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally going through the process.
Something that's like
It's you're gonna start out as two different people, no
Yeah.
matter how much time you
Yeah.
spend together. Once you come together, you're different people.
yeah.
So you have to learn how to live with each other, and there's gonna be bumps and bruises and
Something that is just like on my heart heavy right now, and I was seeing it yesterday, and I love what you guys are talking about, because you were talking about like fighting, like you're not walking out, and that's what your guys is. And you were talking, like you just said, fight, like that's the word that keeps coming up. One thing that I want to, and please input real quick if you guys have any on this situation, but people that just stay in it for the children too, like it's not just like, obviously that's one of the biggest things, like loving God's children is like one of the biggest things, obviously. But if you're gonna stay in it for that reason, then like fight for the other person then too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like because I mean, my parents did that for a little while. And they got divorced and they got remarried again, and then they got divorced again, and so it's just like a huge thing. And I seen it from a buddy that I seen yesterday, and they're not divorced yet, but he's moved out. But just a lot of sad stuff, and I'm like, don't you want to fight for the other person though too?
Yeah.
You know, like who created those kids with you? Who was there with you? Like, I mean, it's not, if you're gonna stay anyways, you might as well fight for that other person. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, trying to really put into words for me so many times where, I mean, not to go over spiritual here, but literally about dying and just surrendering, like having to lay my life down, and we're called to. It's, you know, I was telling Curtis earlier today, I was thinking about when we got married, and I literally had, I mean, we obviously weren't serving God, but such a mindset of, yay, I'm going to get on the throne and he's going to wash my feet. And it's just about getting, and you know, the like Hollywood film idea of being like this princess bride is like gross. It's actually not realistic at all.
Yeah.
So you know, it sets up, so sad, it sets up young women and men for failure because those are unrealistic expectations. That's not the reality of marriage. Like it is up and down. It is hard work. I mean, you're dying to yourself. You're becoming one with another person who is totally opposite of you.
Yeah.
So again, I just don't know how people do it, you know, without God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, when I was saying I was fighting because of the kids. It's
Oh, I wasn't saying
no.
that you were fighting because of the kids.
I mean, if you're going to make that decision, I'm going to stay because I don't want to walk out on my kids. You have to, there has to be the fight, like you're saying, for the spouse too. You can't just stay and continue to fight and have this terrible environment for your children to grow up in.
Because a lot of kids, they turn 18, the parents are like, okay, you're done, you're out of the house, we're divorced, and then they're like, everything was a lie.
Yes,
and everything that I've seen about marriage and intimacy is not truly what I've seen. It's not true to what intimacy and marriage looks like.
Yeah.
And that's where like my heart is right now, like for people that are seeing that, like I thought I knew what marriage was. I thought I knew what intimacy was. And then I seen the realness and I was like, I don't want this. Like when I get married, like I want it to be forever kind of thing. So.
Yeah. And I think some of the even translations in Ephesians 5 will say our marriage is to literally be a witness to the world. You know, it says your husbands lay your lives down like Jesus laid his life down for the bride. We are to be our marriage is to be a witness. Like if God had his way, every believing husband and wife, we would look like the church, like Jesus and his bride. And that would reach a world. I mean, what if every believing husband and wife could reach a confused and lost generation because of a marriage, a mom and dad that loved each other, and the world went, whoa, I want that. Yeah.
I think that's actually like a main like ministry. I think it's
the biggest
everyone's
ministry.
well,
honestly.
call on their lives. It's family.
It's the biggest ministry.
That's why Satan always goes to it first to steal, kill, and destroy. Because if he can do that, then it creates.
Well, and that's why, like
I have
so many parables about marriage.
Yes.
The virgins, the wedding feast, the father bringing. He's like, fine, these guests aren't coming. Go out into the streets and grab these because my son's getting married, like, and we're having. So it's like so many parables. Like that is the biggest ministry, and I didn't even think about it or realize it. And then I got married, and I was like, wow, like okay, God, like everybody's like, are you sure you're ready? Like this is a huge step, and you're like. I get it. I get it. Like, shut up. Yeah, and then it's like, oh my gosh. And it's strengthened my relationship with God because I'm like, okay, God, help me to see my wife the way you see her because I need to be a better wife myself.
Yes.
You know, so.
A better wife?
Yeah. A better bride.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Not a wife. Anyways.
I need to be a better wife myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, what I think we're gonna have you do is pray. We're gonna end out with
We
praying
end with
for
prayer in every episode, and we like to reach out to the people actually listening, because there's a lot of people that just pray
people
and
that are
close.
struggling
But-
in their marriages.
Yeah, right now, because these people they
And
could
sex.
Yeah.
they could
Well, I mean,
they
that
could be
goes
even
together.
just skipping part of the video or like getting to like the end or whatever the case may be. We really want it to be too like, okay, like this person, like right now, they get to claim it right now. Like that's one thing I
So
learned
good.
about the kingdom, like
Yes.
actual kingdom. Like it doesn't matter if it happened a year ago, 10 years ago. If someone's listening to it right now, like the spirit's still moving. It's
So
still there.
true.
It's still alive. So
Yeah.
they can claim this prayer. They can
Yes.
hear this and really hold on to that and like, okay, that's I'm claim that promise.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely. Something, one more quick thought that I had, something else I want to say. I had, in fact, recently a gal share with me, we were having a conversation and she had made the comment or just expressed a fear because of her past. She had been sexually abused and just a lot of stuff, and made the comment that she was afraid that, you know, she'll never, in some other words, basically have a healthy sex life with her husband. That just came to my mind as you were talking about sex, and I'm living proof that you can.
Yeah.
I'm living proof that you can. And that is a really hard place, both for men and women. But as a woman who has gone through sexual abuse, it does affect and impact the marriage bed. Absolutely. And one of the things I said actually to this gal, and I think she may have even said something about it as well, like finding a man. And I said, you can. There are men out there that are safe. You know, my husband's one of them. I'm so grateful. God truly has given me a man who is very safe in the bedroom. And I believe that is part of how I have been able to heal in that area.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
you know, and recover. And so it is possible. So I just want to say that to anybody listening who has had, you know, sexual abuse and is struggling in that area. You can be healed, and you can have an amazing sex life. Yeah. So
Preach.
all right. So, Jesus, I thank you for this time, God. And for those listening right now, Lord, I pray, Lord, that a fight would rise up in them, Lord, and hope would be restored in them, even right now, Jesus, where they are just thinking, you know, I don't know if this can work. I don't know if I have anything left to give. I pray, Holy Spirit, right now that you would just come upon every listener, and I just release a spirit of fight, a fighting spirit within them to continue to not give up, to go the distance, to get help, to do whatever it takes to see their marriage into the promised land, and to come out of the wilderness and into a place of promise and blessing and hope and intimacy. And I just prophesy to you hope and life and truth, that you are going to make it, you can make it, and with God, all things are possible. Amen.
Thank you guys so much.
thank
you.
You're welcome.